ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணலாம்.
Okay, sir. Good morning. I'm happy to greet everyone on behalf of V.O.ChidambaramCollege and the Department of English. We thank you for your overwhelming response and for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us for the webinar on Gender Studies Rethinking Inequalities. We hope you will all have an informative session with us. Now I call upon Mrs. Kala Sharmila, Assistant Professor of English, to deliver the welcome address and to introduce the speaker, Dr. Shanti Chitra. Sharmila, please.
Good morning. And suddenly you know it's time to start something new and trust the magic beginnings. Warm greetings from the Department of English, V.O.ChidambaramCollege, Thuthukudi. Respected principal, esteemed resource person, my colleagues, teaching fraternity from various colleges, and dear participants, good morning to one and all. To be an inspiration is an honor. Yes, it is a true pleasure to welcome and acknowledge the presence of our revered principal, Dr. C. Veerabahu, for he has been our inspiration in all our academic endeavors. Welcome, sir. I'm specially honored to welcome Dr. Shanti Chitra, Associate Professor and Head, Department of English, SRM Institute of Technology, Chennai. Welcome, ma'am. Let me also acknowledge the presence and the magnanimous help of our IQAC coordinator, Dr. John Prince, and IQAC member, Professor Gomadi Nayagam. Welcome, sirs. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all our valuable participants from all over India and abroad for their due presence. Once again, I welcome one and all. Today, this task of introducing our eminent resource person, Dr. Shanti Chitra, is a great privilege to me. Dr. Shanti Chitra is Associate Professor and Head, Department of English, SRM Institute of Technology, Katan Kulathur, Chennai. Coupled with an impressive profile, she is a living idiom of a woman who, to her amazing literary credentials, has 17 years of excellent academic experience. She is a novelist of 4 renowned novels, The Fractals, Kali Yuga Kilaviyum Onai Kuttigalum, Lonely Marriages, Intimate Strangers. Her themes strive to stir and disturb tranquility and monotony of life. She has also actively involved herself, serving in various capacities as a short story writer, editor, member of various board of studies, member of library committees, member of syllabus framing committees, participated and presented papers in several national and international conferences, and also published more than 50 research articles in peer-reviewed journals. If one takes a closer look at the alchemy of an amazing erudite academician like Dr. Shanti Chitra, 2 distinct virtues pop up. 1, her pioneering spirit, and 2, her amazing artistic, creative roots and her beautiful efforts. May I now welcome Dr. Shanti Chitra to take over the session and share your valuable insights on gender studies, rethinking inequalities. Ma'am, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, organizers, Department of English, the management, V.O.C. College, Thuthukudi, for this webinar and for providing me this opportunity to talk on gender studies, rethinking inequalities. I'll just start sharing my screen. I hope it is visible to all.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So is it possible that I stop my video?
You mean your presentation, ma'am?
No, I mean myself.
Okay.
Because I'm still not used to seeing myself on
Okay.
screen when I'm talking. So
Okay. Okay, ma'am, I stopped.
all right, so I hope the screen is visible. I'll go for full screen.
Oh, you want to see the full screen?
Full screen, yeah.
Okay. So do one thing, ma'am. There is a button that is hide. That is, ma'am. First, start your video first.
Okay, one second.
Okay. We have not seen your video. Okay. Okay. Start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now share the screen.
Okay.
Fine. Ma'am, there is 4 buttons in the top of the video.
Okay.
One
Let's
is
stop. Video.
yes, that is 9 dots, 2 dots, and a single broad dot, and that is one minus symbol, hyphen. Click
Yes.
that
Yes.
hyphen.
Why?
That there are 4 dots. The first one, hide thumbnail view video. That option we make.
Hide video panel or floating video?
Not that. You don't go to that one, ma'am.
Okay.
Over your video.
Okay. Yeah.
Top of that, yes. The
So
people who are talking only visible.
Okay. No, I don't want my video to be there. That's why.
Okay, then you can stop it.
No. I think you have the option to hide my video.
Yes, I do it. Okay.
All right, yeah.
Then no, go ahead, ma'am. We stopped.
I'll start the topic being gender studies, rethinking inequalities. I would like to mention that in many universities, we have this topic, gender studies, but which is very recently has been added. This rubric was not available earlier. Earlier, we used to have women's studies, under which we will have feministic oriented papers prescribed. But later, we got this gender studies, but still, we only had changed in many places the rubric alone, but the papers that we mostly have under this title is only women-oriented issues and literature which talks about feminism. Now, the point is, we know that women do suffer in the society a lot, and feminism is essential. But what we see as a problem of women is only a cause. Now, the problem that women face is a result of something. Now, if we are not going to see what has actually caused this result, I mean, the root of it, then it's pointless for us to keep talking about the problem alone. With that perspective, we have to look at gender studies. Now, the idea that that is more than 59% of the world's population is women. And when I say women, I have included transgender women as well. Yet, as the Kenyan Nobel laureate says, Wangari Maathai, that the higher you go, the fewer women you find there. Now, the point is again, what has happened? Like, what has caused this situation? So somewhere when we talk about the inequality, this is the point which we have to work on. Now, we might think that something is wrong, and then we might even blame a particular gender. We might say that men are responsible for that. But I want to have a perspective established to look at the whole problem through that perspective. And that perspective is men are equally a victim of the same problems here. Now, it's not just women who are suffering, but also men as well. Now, they might seem are liberated, free, but then I think that it is the very perception is a myth. He is not free at all. And everything that results after that is because of that he inherently is not free. So with that perspective, if we travel along, we the whole session, I think it would be easier for me to drive the point that I'm trying to establish. In the year 2015, I published my first novel, The Fractals. But the fractal was in my mind since the year 2005. But I kept procrastinating the writing of the fractals because I thought that something that is so obvious to me must be just as obvious to everyone else. So what's the point in me writing? What is new that I'm going to tell anybody? But I realized that it is a misconception of mine. Like it is a mistaken perception of mine about the way everything is viewed by everyone. So, and once the day I realized that, everything changed for me. I started believing that the world is not the way it looks like. There are different worlds. There are so many worlds. Each and every human being here is a different world, and he's suffering an incapacity to understand the other. Now, this incapacity that I'm talking about is something which I have to narrate an incident behind it. That was in few years. I mean, few years later, I was reading Ladies Coupe. It was on my table, and it was written by Anita Nair. I had a professor. He was my professor in my MPhil. Later, he became my colleague as well. He walked into the department. He saw the book on my table. He felt his face visibly looked disturbed. And he asked me, "Madam, could you understand it, the novel?" The question was strange because Anita Nair is not D.H. Lawrence. She's not Manto. She's not Kafka or Camus or even Philip Roth. She's a very simple narrator with no complications ever in her writing. Why was he asking such a question to me was something which I really couldn't relate with. And then he's told that Lady Scooby was introduced to him by a friend of his. The person had suggested it to him. And when he was reading halfway through, he found it so very difficult to read. He almost developed a severe headache, he said, for he found the women in the novel not palatable, not digestible. And he had stopped reading it, and he had given the novel to his wife, saying how he felt sick reading it. And it was actually a physical sickness. He almost, both psychically and physically, he got disturbed by the content in Ladies Coupe. And his wife, he said, had read it in a sitting, and she, after finishing it, had told him, what is there to fall sick about this novel? It's a very simple novel about women. Now, that was the moment when I realized that women are not as simple as they seem to everybody. We might seem simple to us, but then for men, we are altogether a different world. I realized that there definitely exists another world, and the popular saying of it's almost a cliched one that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. Somewhere there's some truth behind it, and it's the incapacity to understand each other is so real and it's so strongly is existing. But that was the moment when I realized the existence of the difference, and the difference leading one to this incapacity to understand the other, particularly of the other gender, is something which is so strong, which we have to work on. And it dawned to me that women are not understood by men at all. And similarly, women are also not able to understand the other, because I couldn't understand when I looked him as a person who was holding man's mind. I felt that he was not able to understand, and I was not able to understand the reason behind his not understanding. Such a simple idea, and he was not able to understand. And there it dawned to me that the consciousness study is vital. There are differences which are to be read. And this consciousness is something which we develop since we are born, since the way we are raised by our situations, our surroundings, and the indoctrinations that is there in us makes all the difference. And most importantly, there's a mask, a pretense that a woman is made to hold for herself. and which is again is the expectation of the society. So when she happens to drop it accidentally or occasionally, willingly or in any way, and when she writes herself in a novel like Lady Scooby, she shocks men. Now, that is not the women that men perceive them, perceive for themselves. And the real is so simple, yet it becomes so hard for them to grasp. W.H. Auden says that we are lived by powers we pretend to understand. The point that we have to see here is pretend to understand. We think that we understand. No, we don't think that we have understood. We are only pretending that we have understood. So there is a realization that we don't know. We haven't understood. Just like Freud once said that I try to understand everything, but I haven't understood women yet. The point is there is something about everybody believing that they have understood something, but many a time it is a pretension. They think that they are holding a power. Now this line is something which is so close to the very idea of men being a man. Now he lives by a power, believing that he holds it, but how fragile that power that he tries to hold is also another idea which we'll explore a little later. Another point of view is that we're all built by stories. Now, these stories, we have to know that we start associating with ourselves. They can come through religion, they can come through fables, they can come through any myths, but they do definitely build us. Now, this power that men think they hold in their hands are, as I told you, from the stories. We have stories of Rama, we have stories of Lakshmana, and several other heroes which had built them, had all given them a misconception about being a man and what is to be understood as a masculinity. Now, let us look at all these characters as part of a story. Let us not get into any other aspects, but just look at it as a story. The concepts that we have given to men are that severing or mutilating or dehumanizing a woman when she expresses her desire or her mind is accepted. It's considered as a normal act. The male heroes in the stories have done that. Now, if we give that, what are we trying to tell them? So that is being followed, and we find that there is a particular culture which still exists in our society when this dehumanizing of women takes place. Now, if you look at who Surpanakha was, the very name suggests that she's somebody who had a very sharp, a prominent nose, the most beautiful feature in her face, which had prompted the people to give her name after that. So that part is mutilated. Now that somewhere, in spite of me, I'm not able to forget what we do in the name of acid culture or any other act of insult that is that a woman shares in this world is all somewhere is given by these stories. Now, how easy is it to shed these stories off a system? Now, that's a question which we have to answer. It's not easy, but then we can always leave it behind and then look at from an objective point of view, and maybe we will be able to do something about it. Now, this is something which I wanted to talk about, what rethinking is. Few days back, we had to go to college to sort of few marks related work for the final year's examination. There was already a faculty waiting for the lift to come down. She greeted me loudly because we are all with masks on face. We were hardly able to recognize each other. The lift came, we both entered, and exactly then another faculty entered, and she started holding the lift for a few more friends who were on the way. I said, we are there already, and we are 3 in number. It will become a crowd, ma'am. She said, oh yeah, I didn't realize that. And still she kept waiting because we can almost hear her friends approaching. I still said, let's close and let them wait, ma'am. She didn't want to listen to me. She obviously ignored me. It was so obvious. And there were 5 in number who all rushed inside. When they all rushed inside, I got out. I got out because I cared. The care that she was trying to show by holding the lift for 5 more members to enter, I think expired 2 months back. That kind of a care is no longer a care now. So today, care is to leave people alone. Today, to hold, to wait for others is not care, it's lethal, it's deathly. Similarly, a rethinking for everything, especially for the ideas that we hold for gender for years together, for eons together, the norms, the stereotypes for being a man, a woman is to be reconstructed. And it's not easy, yet we have to. Now, we have to know that there is a kind of a construction which is given to everybody. The moment a child is born, it is given a textbook. You are born with a female body, and you are a woman, and you are born with a male body, you are a man. Now, they'll have to try to fit into that. Now, this is like how stories build us. We have to remember that for a second, if you think about the topics that we gossip about somebody, it could be about a woman, it could be about a man. What are the points that we discuss there? If we just jot it all down, it would be a good observation about the kind of a mind that we possess, and we will understand where we actually lag behind to establish the equality that we are talking about. The kind of the textbooks that we are stuck with since our childhood is one. Like, for example, the kind of stories which has told us that this is how a woman should be, this is how a man should be, will be visible there. Like the gossips would be like, she still can't cook, she has to cook. His walk is so feminine, like he is walking like a woman. And we might say, why is she so loud? She's a woman, how can she be so loud? And we might even say that he's crying being a man, so he cannot cry. We will ask her, like, she doesn't have children, she hasn't given birth to a child yet. He has married before his sister. So sisters ought to get married first in a society. He cannot marry first. And we also might talk about people, women who have expressed their love, who've told or who expressed their love first. If it is her, then she becomes questionable to us. She becomes a topic of discussion for us. And he is out of his job. Now, a man should hold a job forever, and if he's not in job, and if he's staying at home, and if the wife is working and he is not working, that becomes a topic of gossip for us. Here, and you let your wife to dominate you. Now, that domination can be of any sort, like we would have seen him getting money from her, or we would have seen he packing lunch for her, or we might see that she is scolding him, or any kind of a domination. So these are topics of gossip. So we try our best to escape these gossips, because we don't want to seem a little to people who are around us. So we try our best to act differently, opposite to those gossip topics. So this is one idea which if we keep looking at, if we keep jotting down, we will understand what we actually are. Now, there's something called pretense. Now, we believe in pretense. We call that as culture, but culture has to be something which should accommodate, which must allow the other to live in harmony. But we are doing something else. We are stifling a humanity and then we give him a life of pretense, and we make the other to follow it. And if that person is not doing it, we will not accept him in a particular gender. So these stereotyping actually leads a man to be so tough, and we do him the worst thing ever. We put him in a very narrow cage, actually, a box kind of a thing. We stifle the humanities of boys there. We don't want him to be normal or human. We tell him that he should not be afraid. he should have no fear, and he should not be vulnerable. Vulnerability is a weakness, so he cannot afford to do that. And if he is like that, then he cannot be accepted as a man. So that is one point of view. And we offer him, we keep giving him, gifting him lots of lies. So you have to become something else. You have to give up all that which you naturally have in you, and you have to become something else. And put on this mask and get ready to become a man. And man is a very harsh being, a hard being. He cannot be crying. He cannot be sympathizing. He has to, he should be man of few words. He cannot talk. He cannot be consoling to the other. Now, the point is, now if this is how we are creating a human, how is it possible for us to accept anything else? Or like we have a very different construction for a women, and women are brought up as a emotional being. Rationality is not is given to her at all. So in that case, how is it possible for her to get any emotional support from a human who is deprived of being human? So these are the points which we have to remember when we talk about what it is to be a man. Now, another point which we have to remember is the moment anybody enters a place, now we decide that the person is a man or a woman. It is we who decide. We do not want the other to tell us what the person wants oneself to be addressed as. We looking at the body, we decide. Looking at the sex, actually, we decide that the person is a man or a woman. But man or women is a construct of a mind. Now, what kind of an approach you want to give to the society, or what kind of an approach do you expect from the society for yourself, is something which is to be decided by the individual. But what we do is we decide it for them, seeing their body. Now, if I tell you that I'm born with a male body, but I am a woman, or if I tell you that I'm born with a female body, but I am a man, why does that become so difficult for the others to accept? Now, why is that we want to assert the power over everybody? Isn't that in a way a violence? Now, that's the point which we have to remember, because everything about the society is a construct. We are not what we think we are born for. We are whatever the society or the situation has created us to become. Now, if we really understand that closely, if we get to know what exactly the point is, then almost everything about the society which is tormenting us, and so many isms that has erupted, and so many fights that we are fighting for, will all come to an end with a proper solution. Now, this is Ian McEwan's Cement Garden, a novel written in 1978. Later, it became a movie also. I must say that it's a very morbid book. It's not easy to read because the cultural roots that we have in us will get shaken when we will read it. But yet, there is something about it which will make us understand that it is the situation or the indoctrination which actually makes us into whatever we are. It definitely is there in us, in our hands, to become whatever we have become. So there is nothing to feel so proud about it. It is just an accident for us to be what we are. I told you that it is a morbid because it is indigestible culture-wise. But at the same time, it's a very gripping one. It would make one realize that everything is culturally is thought, it's constructed, and it is artificial. And one slip from the high principles that we are all holding on to can take us to anything. Like whatever I need not be the same about my children. Like my children might be altogether a different person. And according to them, I might be a very mean human being as well. So everything depends on the perception. So the point is where exactly to balance it, how exactly to take it forward, where actually I call that I have evolved, or the ideas that I hold is accommodative. Now this accommodation will make me think or believe that whatever I have attached to myself is essential. Now, it is still possible for us to look into the truth that if we decide we can build a very beautiful world for all, by shedding the norms attached to each gender. Now, the quotation that we find here is girls can wear jeans and cut their hair short and wear shirts and boots because it's okay to be a boy. For girls, it's like promotion, like you reach a better place, like becoming a boy is a great thing. But for a boy to look like a girl is degrading, according to you, because secretly you believe that being a girl is degrading. Now, this is the thought which is given to a boy. Now, there is always a fear in everybody that if a boy is allowed to be like a girl, what would happen to his psyche? Now, no, like how's that? Like, and then we constantly tell him that to be a boy is to be harsh and hard, and then remote from emotions. This is how you have to be. And but the point is, look at the dress. Like, how many men can actually wear women's clothing and then walk out? Now, he would feel miserable. He can't do that. Now that will become a challenge for him. It's a dare thing for him. He can't do it at all. But what about girls? So somewhere in the minds of girls, it is allowed. They are made to believe that if you wear men's clothing, then you're modern. You're better. But then for a boy to wear a women's clothing is demeaning. He just can't do it. Sometimes there are situations where when a boy is made to wear women's clothing, he has even tried to kill himself or kill the other person. So to that extent, this is hated, but it's still a clothing. He's not ripped of his clothes. He's given a cloth, but it is a women's cloth. So what is attached to this idea? So that is to be looked at. Now, another point of view which we must look at is the cuss word, the bad words that we have. All the swear words which we have in this world are connected to the body of a female. So we do not really want to call ourselves, women in particular are not to be associated with at all. Men should not associate themselves with women. And the cuss words which are used against men are impotency. He's called a quiver, and so it is obvious that it is abuse. Like anybody can be abused if one is like a woman. So that's the point of view that we keep giving the other. A man who pretends to be soft or lovable or gentle is not liked much. He is abused the most. And this happens particularly when the boys are growing up in their teenage. We can find that they do their best to be the worst human beings. They'll be so assertive. They'll be involving themselves in all sorts of the so-called evil associations. Now, why do they do it? Because they'll have to assert who they are. And for that reason, they keep doing it. And still, we expect a society where such events never take place. But then the very pressure to be a man is to become evil. So in a way, that's what is happening. Now, we have to understand one thing, that men are never free. It's just a myth. Believing that a man is free is totally a myth. They are as much victims as women are, or any other gender. I'm saying any other gender because we still have not totally have accepted transgender as man or women. We still believe that we still have a column called other in most of the applications. The point is, of the few works in which men have actually expressed what it is to be a man in the society is A.K. Ramanujan's obituary. In obituary, we will find that a son is most wanted here. Now, he's most wanted because not because his parents have got fortune for him, but he takes the responsibility of the family. All the debts that the father had, the daughters the father has, everything will be transferred to the child now, the male child now. So this never happens to a girl. The reason why they don't want a girl is now she cannot be trusted with all those things. Whereas if you be if you are a man, even if you're just a 10-year-old child, the father will trust everything that is his responsibility automatically will become his. But how is it possible for us to think then that a man is free? Now, looking at this, I would like to say that there's something called negative capability. We all would have read this long back when we were reading Keats. Now, negative capability is one solution for understanding the other. Now, in the beginning, we spoke about how it becomes so difficult to understand what it is to be a woman or what it is to be a man. The inability to understand a writing of a woman. Now, the reason is we are all locked up inside in our head about being a man or being a woman. Now, if we look at Kafka's Metamorphosis, though the idea or the theme might, the mostly where how it is explored is how overnight a man becomes a huge moth. Now, this moth becoming a moth and then being like a moth and then holding the heart of a human. Now, is an understanding. It's a kind of an idea which is given to us to pass on, to leave behind what we are and then get into something else, which is generally is considered as insignificant. How difficult it is to get into the body of that which is considered as insignificant in this world. So let yourself travel into the mind of the women, or let yourself travel into the mind of a man, and then try and understand what exactly he is. Now, that's very much is possible provided you are a good reader, provided you really have understood, or you have the capacity, or you have the yearning to know what it is to be the other. And another novel, it's a novel, a very short one, The Breast by Philip Roth. We will find that how he becomes a huge flesh, a piece of breast, and then what happens to him. He's an alive man. He thinks, he acts, he feels hungry, everything is there in him. But then when he becomes a piece of a flesh of a body, he doesn't really know how does it feel. Now, the whole attraction toward that particular piece. Now, how does that feel to become that? Now, that's the idea which we will see in his work. Now, we spoke about A.K. Ramanujan's obituary, where the boy is trusted with all the responsibility. The family reveals that there is a son. Now they don't have to worry about anything. Now he will take care of everything. He will bring in money. He will take care of the family. Now, when that happens, and then you suddenly find that the son expresses himself that he is not a son, but is a daughter. He doesn't want himself to be addressed as he, but then it's a she. What happens to her is inexplicable. Now, the expectation of the family from a son, and then the son suddenly says to them that they are not understanding, but the person they are addressing is a daughter. Now, what happens to him after that? That is totally is inexplicable. She's even driven out of the house. Now, why is it so important for a son to remain in the cage of masculinity? Now, many a time when they try to escape it, they don't want to be a male. How is it looked at by the very parents? How are they looked at by the society? Even people who are remotely connected to, they despise them. They want the man to be a man. Now, you're not going to give laurels to a man for he being a man. He's only is deprived of several things. He cannot be free. But what we think is that maybe men are free. Are they really? Now, because of that, what happens is many a time they kill themselves. They're not able to be themselves. So that's the point which they do. Now, there's one more point which I wanted to narrate. A few months back, maybe a year back, I was in an interview panel. I was given some resume for scrutiny. The person who gave me them told me, pointing out a particular resume, that, Madam, this applicant came in person and seemed was queer. When I looked into the resume, there was a column, gender, typed out by the person, and it said not specified. So the person's, the one who handed over the resume, his observation was right. and the applicant had sound academic record, we called for interview. And when the person came, had long hairs and effeminate handshakes, movements were clearly indicating that there is a woman taking the demo class test. But and then when when she was writing on the board, suddenly she turned to us and said, "The hair is grown because I'm working in a friend's album." Now, it was obvious that the person is so scared of what is the person revealing. So there was maybe she felt that there were eyes prying her from behind, and maybe she felt that we had lots of questions in our mind related to her gender. And obviously, that's why she turned and then gave that justification. We told that that's not a concern at all. You go ahead with the class. Later, she got selected. The resume she had submitted on the day of interview was a little different. It had the gender column filled with male. Based on the performance, she got selected and got appointed, but I kept both the resume copies with me. I did not submit it in the office. And one day I called her and spoke to her about the discrepancies, because there's a difference in this and that. And then told her she can express herself without fearing any censure. She doesn't have to hide herself. Since then, I know I have helped a bird to escape a cage. I can see the person so happily working there, the small circle that she has created. Now and then we put a word to people, including the students in our class, that this teacher is to be addressed as a ma'am and not as a sir. Now you have no idea like what kind of a happiness that we have given to this person. Now we have prevented this person from pretense. Why do we want somebody to lie? Why should anybody pretend when it is quite easy to let them be themselves? By the person being, allowing oneself to address as oneself. Now, we have all read Shakespeare. In almost all Shakespeare's plays, we'll come across these female characters always adorning themselves as male. Now, the reason a point, like for example, Portia adorns herself as a male, and then she comes to the court and then fights, and then she wins, and then she gets back, and then now all these disguises. Why has he given? The reason is we know that Shakespeare himself was an actor on stage, and most of the time he was given only the role of female, because he was so young, and then he had this female features. So he was given the role of women. And he had that yearning inside him to act like a man on stage, which was never possible for him. So having that consideration in his mind, he understood the pain. And so whenever he wrote, he always made sure that all these characters who are given the female role always get a chance to act like a male on stage. Now, we know back then there was no, one cannot even imagine act as a female. I mean, real women cannot even act on stage. So the idea itself didn't exist. So only men will have to do both the roles. And it felt so bad for them to always come and as a female when they are yearning inside them is to appear as a man. Now, similar to this is what it is. Like you feel that you're a woman, but then you have to dress up like a female. I'm sorry, male, because the world doesn't want you to act like a female. And then you want to get yourself addressed as a woman, but then you will have to hide it because the world will censure you. Now, when you remove that, when you allow them to, how is it that difficult? In the process of fitting in, what has happened is many have lost their life. They have even allowed themselves to get killed. Yet we prefer to address them by their body and not by their mind. Now, what sort of a mind do we possess then? When it comes to job, it's not the hormone which is going to actually influence the caliber. It's just the intelligence, creativity, or they have to be innovative, which anybody can possess. You don't have to be a man or woman for that. You don't have to stick to the assigned body for that. No, body is irrelevant when it comes to job. Yet, in an application form for job, we always have this column mandatorily asked male or female. Why do we ask that? And even today, we if there is just male or female, what about the third column? Third column, because we have not accepted them as men or women yet. So we have to have a third column, but that third column is missing. So if we allow them to address themselves as men or female, male or female, will we accept them? Are we ready to accept that? So this absurd notion of ours drive to a potential being. I mean, we make the potential being to look like an insignificant nothing. Now, this is what we gift them. Now, why are we doing that? We talk a lot about the change in society. Now, how much changed are we? Why do we become so curious about the person's identity? Now, what is a gender utopia? Like, what would be the perfect world for them? What exactly will be an ideal world for all the genders to exist with? Sometimes back in a business conference which was held in US, there were 50 participants, and of those 50 participants, 2 were transgenders. But the organizing committee, the organizers, gave everyone a card with a tag to hang around their neck. Now, that card had a question in it: what pronoun you prefer for yourself? They were not deciding your pronoun by your gender. They are asking you to express yourself, and they respected it. That is, like, you have to write, like, do I want to get addressed as a she, or do I want to get addressed as a he? Now, whatever I'll say, based on that, they are deciding. So it's entirely is not based on how you're born. It is based on what is your preference. Now, that's so simple. Now, there is no violation there. There is no trusting there. There's no penetration there. So no probing, no judging, just letting you be you. We understand that gender is something which is a constraint. Many a time, this gender is given to you and then makes you behave like a gender. Gender is not pink or blue. Gender is not based on its genitals at all. Gender is that which an individual chooses for self and is comfortable and happy with it. Now, happiness comes when one is true to oneself and others. How comfortable are we in allowing others to be comfortable? Now, that's the question which we have to understand. Why is it we always want to thrust ourselves into the other? Is it not also similar to rape? When I try to thrust my idea into the other, and when I force the other to behave the way I want, now that is also in a way, is as gruesome as rape itself. Now, when we raise boys and girls, what do we teach them? To boys, we teach chivalry, be polite to women, take no money from her. Now, these are also ideas which had made men to be the way they are. Now, they have to open the car door for her, let her sit first. And in all these process, he's actually asserting a power over the girl. And when he tries to assert that power over a girl, and if he doesn't do it, the girl herself will start judging him. He'll have to open his purse and pay there. Now, if he doesn't do it, now you will find that many times the boys, when they are in their teenage, they used to steal at home. And later, you will find when a man becomes when he's a man, when he's an adult, and he loses his job, he kills himself, because we have terms like udyogam, purusha lakshanam, because these are the point of views which we have thrusted in them. Like, no boy can actually say that to his mother, I do not want to go for a job later, find out a girl who will take care of who will go to office and will financially take care of the house. No, we don't do that. They can't even do that. If a son does it, he'll be looked down upon. So we are giving them an ego, and that ego is so fragile. Now, this fragile ego might get broken at any time. Now, for that sake, what we do is we create you remember there was a tradition in China where they bind the Chinese foot binding. Now, when you do that, you do not allow this girl to grow because you prevent her from running away. Now, you do this to women also, because you have gifted men a very fragile ego. He'll get hurt at any moment. Now, to suit that ego, the girl will have to act. Now, she cannot go for jobs where she is paid more. She'll have to behave that she is lesser. and she can go for job, but then she should not go to a position which is higher than her husband. She cannot earn more than her husband. She'll, even if she does, then she'll have to pretend like she's earning lesser, because otherwise it'll hurt the fragile ego of the man. Now, who has gifted all this? Who have nurtured this idea in a man? It is us. And we have given pretense to each of the genders. You have to pretend like a woman, and women is expected to do all these things. You might not like cooking, but still you'll have to pretend like you like cooking. You might not want to give birth to children right away, but then you will be made to do it. And similarly, a man might also have certain ideas in his mind, but he won't be allowed to. And only if he proves himself as a man, then he will be able to exist, like he'll be allowed to exist, coexist in a society. Now, as I told you, gender construction is not easy. I mean, gender generally is only a construction. If we can give a simpler pattern, it's quite easy for them to live a better life. Simone de Beauvoir actually has said that women are not born, they're made. So it is the society which produces them or makes them or converts them into a woman. But we still believe that we are born women or men. There are moments where if a man helps a woman to put the baby to sleep, or if he feeds the baby, there is a tendency that women might might say sorry. I mean, I'm sorry. They might say thank you to the partner, to the male partner. That itself shows that we are telling them that it is not their work. So they are celebrated for being so generous and helping a women. But the point is, like we take selfies, or we capture moments or events in our phone or in our camera, which we find is extraordinary. But do we take a selfie when we drop a pencil and when we pick it up? When we, it's our purse which falls down. It's our pen which slips from our hand. When I pick it, I will not be looking for somebody to take a picture of it and then post it around saying like, see, she has picked it up. Now it's a very natural, normal tendency, something which we unconsciously do it. Now we have not allowed human beings to do most of the things unconsciously. That unconscious part is not even developed in them. We have given a very different psyche to them. So that which is to be naturally normal, nothing great kind of a work, is asserted in such a manner that that is the most important thing, or like, wow, what a beautiful thing or great thing he has done. So we've been boosting a fragile ego with one more dose every time. We make them appear like unusual species. So if somebody helps the wife, then he's looked at like someone who's so great. That is to be normal. Now, he's a normal human being. If somebody is not doing it, then he has to be abnormal. But that we do not look at that way at all. Who suffers the most in society? We think women. No, everybody suffers equally. It's all because of the construction that we have given, which has got lots of holes in it, which is to be constructed. And what is to be a man? What is to be a woman? We have to understand that, as Gavin D. Becker says, that women suffer rape and death. They are more scared of that. And what do men fear? They fear getting laughed at or humiliated by a romantic perspective. So what is told to him always is like, your wife will respect only if you be manly. And for that manly, we have given all the rubbish in this earth, dumped in his mind. And we have, as already have stated, we have the human part in him is mostly is taken away. And he's afraid of getting laughed. And that happens when we look at the pattern of his development in his teenage, the peer pressure, he wants to prove himself and he gets into everything. Now that's a very murky tunnel which he enters, and when he comes out, he becomes whatever he becomes, it's in his hands. Nobody has any control over it. That's a kind of a life that we have gifted to men, and yet we expect something else from him. So these are points which we have to remember when we understand, or when we try to talk. Now, there are lots of change in policy which has taken place, which is taking place. We cannot deny that at all. Many changes in the law is happening where men and women are equally treated. Sometimes back there was an incident where so many men, 150 or so, gathered in Kasi, and they had a puja, it seems, for they wanted God to eliminate all the feminists from this earth. They didn't want feminism to thrive. Now, why? Like, what has happened? Like, what has made him to do that? Now, that shows that we have been focusing a lot on women. Of course, there are levels where we have to work a lot, but then we have totally have ignored men. Now, we have to work a lot on their prospects and their development as well, which is ignored, which is to be worked upon. So that's a point which we have to work on. And uh, we cannot deny that there are many changes in law, but what is very crucial, what is very important, what matters the most is the change in attitude, the change in our mindset, in our consciousness. How do we approach laws and policies are there, but are we ready to accept it? Have we started allowing it to get exercised by us? Now, how exactly to establish gender equality? Now, that is very much is there in our hand. It may be established by shedding certain beliefs of ours and move progressively forward toward an expanded consciousness where we accommodate, where we start redefining what we actually value. Now, that's the simple way. Now, this is one historical perspective, like what we are. 13.5 billion years ago, matter and energy appeared, beginning of physics, atoms and molecules appeared, beginning of chemistry. So 4.5 billion years ago, the formation of planet Earth, 3.8 billion years ago, emergence of organisms, beginning of biology happened. 6 million years ago, last common grandmothers of humans and chimpanzees. 2.5 million years ago, evolution of the genus Homo in Africa. Later, we have the Homo erectus. So 2 million years ago, humans spread from Africa to Eurasia, and evolution of different species. But what are we now? This is our history. So we have, like, culture came to existence because of contradictions. We started spreading all over, and we started claiming that we are civilized. But the point here is we are not ready to accept contradiction. Now, the point is, but if we really are cultured, and if we claim that we are civilized, we are not ready to, and if we are not ready to accept contradiction, and if we allow differences to exist, I mean, if we don't want differences to exist, then definitely we cannot call ourselves evolved at all. But that is not generally is looked at all. Like this is what is subjectivity. We have to understand is my perception about the other is something which is just the other. It's just an observation and it's not the reality. Now, to understand that reality, I have to expand my my consciousness. What we famously call in phenomenology noesis and noema, my experiences and your perception. My experiences is so real, but then your perception about it might get 60 to 80%, maybe you're right. But then you still have to be aware of that you're not entirely me. So you cannot understand what I suffer from. So you cannot be thrusting your perceptions and your prejudices inside me. So the idea is we must include papers in gender studies where we create a mind which sheds all the radical prejudices. Like we have to have a radical lack of prejudice. So we have to build a mind which has no prejudice at all. So that sort of possibility, when it's made, then we can say that we are grown. Now, these might seem very trivial and simple to many, but we might think that to fight for equality, one must raise a flag and walk in procession and struggle to bring in changes. But no, in fact, all that is required is that the little things may not be ignored. Because those are the things which actually stings. It can become cancerous. We will have to amputate the particular portion from our body itself. To that extent, it can go. So we cannot ignore the small stings. And we have to understand that nobody appreciates going insignificant and or unacknowledged. For we are not someone who's, but if we can understand that, then how is it possible for us to revel in nothingness? So it hardly takes any effort to give to the other a similar or acceptance. I still don't understand why we don't do that. The point is the ability of being human being to make or remake themselves for the better world is immense. It's very much is there in our hands. So we can definitely can participate. Little effort toward rethinking can actually work wonders in coexistence. So we have to understand that gender studies is something which has got all these ideas about what is to be a man, what is it to be a woman, what is it to be a transgender. And then we have to have an inclusive papers included in that, and which doesn't concentrate only upon the women issues, but then which concentrates upon men issues, like how do we construct a male mind, how we construct a women's mind, what are the changes that we have to work on to get a better mind out of them. Now, all these are the points which we have to start thinking, rebuilding, and reconstructing. Thank you so much. I hope I have finished it on time.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes, ma'am.
Chitra.
Thank you, ma'am.
Gender inequality has always been a polemical issue, and as such, it has opened avenues to creative writings and critical thinking. It's time that we started rethinking and reconstructing the term gender and the gender inequality. Now, I call upon Dr. Chandramati, Associate Professor of English, to propose the vote of thanks. Dear friends, the feedback link is posted in the chat box. Please do fill in.
Good morning to all. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning to all. It has been an enriching day today, and I have to thank a big team of people for making it so enriching and informative. First and foremost, I thank our Honorable Secretary, Through APC V.O.Chidambaram sir, for being the backbone of all our endeavors. He is the source of inspiration for us for his relentless efforts to carry on the mission of our founder secretary. Thank you, sir. Our sincere thanks are to our principal, Dr. C. Veerababu, for giving us an unconditional support for any kind of knowledge sharing platform. Thank you, sir. My special thanks are to our speaker, Dr. Shanti Chitra, Head, Department of English, SRM Institute of Technology, for their excellent deliverance. Ma'am, you have thrown light into the gender inequality and gender sensitization through illustrative examples. Thank you, ma'am, for providing us a useful session. Our heartfelt thanks are to our accuracy coordinator, Dr. John Prince, and assistant coordinator, Dr. Radhika, for their support. Our thanks are due to Mr. Gomadi Nayagam, assistant professor, computer department, for all the technical assistance.
Thank you, ma'am.
We owe our sincere thanks to all our participants for their overwhelming response and for joining hands with us. Dear participants, without you, this webinar would not have been successful. We look forward to your continuous support in all our future endeavors. Thank you, one and all. Sir?
Thank you, ma'am. It was really a good presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Will I be getting any questions? There won't be any time, isn't it?
Yes,
No,
yes,
ma'am.
Dr.
Actually, we can
Shanti.
have. Participants, you can raise your questions by raising your hand, or you can post it in your chat box. Okay.
Sir, I think there is no question.
Yes, Mr. Joseph, you can post your question.
Ma'am, good morning.
Yes. Good morning, sir.
Am I audible to you, ma'am?
Yes, yes. Sir.
Good morning. I mean, I am extremely happy you touched all aspects of gender inequality within the present scenario. I'm very happy about it. But, I would
Thank you
like to
so
go
much.
back to the topic, rethinking inequality. We have been talking about empowerment. We have introduced feminism in the mid-19th century, and then we started women's studies, and now recently we have started gender studies. We have been talking about a lot of empowerment and all that, right? I don't know, but still you see, women are considered vulnerable. They are considered the objects. When are we, of course, you talked about a lot of things, how to bring up a woman or a man and a boy and all that. That's just right. But when are we going to think in terms of equality in concrete terms? I am really worried about that.
Sir, actually speaking, it is we have to understand that there is a difference. There definitely is a difference, and that difference is marked by the hormones. And what it is to be a man or what it is to be a woman is definitely is different. And I have to give an example. A transgender friend of mine who was going through the process of transition was going through lots of hormonal injections, and she told me, I used to believe in love earlier. But as I was going through all these hormonal injections one after the other, the first thought that started occurring in my mind was like I started losing trust in men. Now that is there's something which is there in a mind of a woman, which is dominated by certain hormones. So it is there, dominant in us, will be different. So this equality is related to the or the intellectuality, then we can definitely work upon that. But when it comes to how does one feel or how does the other feel, then that is something which we cannot establish at all, because naturally there is a difference which has to be there, which must go on also, which is actually is beautiful. But as far as the intelligence is concerned, if we allow one to be oneself, that itself is more than enough. As far as all these, like when exactly it is going to happen, I think it's entirely is in our hand. If we raise our children the way the kind of dream that we have in our mind, then I think it's very much as possible. It's not a faraway dream. It's all in our indoctrination. Culture is built. We teach, we tell, and what kind of stories we give them can actually bring all the changes.
Now, actually, ma'am, and I feel, now think of the present scenario in the United States of America after Floyd's murder. Now they say Black life matters. Should we also say in India, woman life matters? How long are we going to do that?
We feel we become empathetic for a while when something of this sort happens, but we immediately forget. In fact, worse things have happened in our country. We know that infants get raped. We find we question a lot about this parda system, this hijab. But actually speaking, a man must actually feel miserable looking at a woman hiding herself like that, because it's kind of a bold, a harsh statement toward men that we don't trust you. So we have to wear like this. We have to cover ourselves. Otherwise, 6-month-old, 8-month-olds do get raped here. So, and when we find that then there were lawyers, so well-read people in Nivea case who actually said that how can she leave her house at 8 o'clock in the evening? So it was night, so it is likely that she gets. It was a lawyer's statement. He's a learned man and all good English. He was talking about that. So education is not that. So this is the kind of a mindset which is there, and in that situation, only possibility is like our children. The hope that we have is the next generation. What do we teach them? How to tell them like it is all right to be a woman. It is all right to identify yourself as a woman. There are a lot of work which has to go on in the classroom and in the homes. The parents are responsible. The teachers are responsible. Everything else is we cannot blame the something called society, which is not even like we can't. Just like how what is government or what is society, we don't have anything. It's the immediate people who are there beside a child. What kind of an indoctrination is given to the child that decides. So it might take a long time, or it might happen within 10, 15 years also, but that's all, it's all there in our hands.
Do you have a specific perspective as a writer
Related to some?
related to the gender equality?
Actually speaking, I like, as I started, men are have to be, I mean, they have to be given a very different perspectives. They have to be taught that masculinity is not violating the other is, or penetrating, or trusting oneself into the other. And women, I have to say that have started imitating men to a great extent. And actually speaking, when the culture evolved, like showing the difference was beautiful, the contrasts were beautiful, but what lacked was the mutual respect. We have started believing that the other is better or the other is lesser. Now, the day we will start respecting each other for whatever they are, I think it's possible to start.
Thank you, ma'am, for a wonderful and enriching session. Great. Great.
Thank you so
ma'am.
much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Dear friends, thank you for having been with us. We are signing off from the convener's desk. Thank you, friends.
So much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir,
GN
shall we
sir?
wind it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. GN sir?
Yes, sir.
GN sir?
இன்னும் ஒருக்கா போட்டு